In the early 13th century, a storm rose from the vast grasslands of Mongolia. Cities burned, empires collapsed, entire armies disappeared beneath the thunder of galloping horses. Within a single generation, a nomadic warlord and his armies conquered more land than any empire in history, from China to the Middle East, from the frozen forests of Russia to the gates of Europe. One name spread terror across the world: Genghis Khan. But the most feared conqueror in history did not begin life as a ruler. He began as a starving outcast. Long before the world trembled at the name Genghis Khan, he was born simply as Temujin. His story began around the year 1162 on the vast and unforgiving plains of Mongolia. The Mongolian steppe was a land of endless grasslands stretching beyond the horizon. Winters were brutal, summers harsh, and survival depended entirely on strength and loyalty. Here, tribes of nomadic horsemen lived constantly on the move, following their herds across the open land. But life on the steppe was not peaceful. Rival tribes clashed constantly over territory, animals, and honor. Alliances were fragile, betrayals were common, and violence was an ordinary part of life. It was into this dangerous world that Temujin was born. His father, Yesugei, was a minor tribal leader of the Borjigin clan. Though not a powerful ruler, Yesugei was respected among the Mongols and hoped that his son would one day grow into a strong leader of the tribe. But fate had other plans. When Temujin was only 9 years old, his father was betrayed. While returning from arranging a marriage alliance for the young boy, Yesugei was poisoned by members of a rival tribe known as the Tatars. He managed to return home before dying, but his death left the family vulnerable. Without their leader, Temujin's clan quickly turned against them. The tribe abandoned Temujin, his mother Hoelun, and his siblings on the open steppe. Suddenly, they were alone. No warriors, no protection, no food stores. For a nomadic family in the harsh Mongolian wilderness, abandonment was often a death sentence. Temujin's mother refused to let her children perish. She gathered wild plants, roots, and berries. The family fished in frozen rivers and hunted small animals to survive. But life was desperate, food was scarce, enemies were everywhere. Even members of Temujin's extended family competed fiercely for what little they had. Tension grew among the starving children. During one bitter dispute over food and power within the family, Temujin killed his older half-brother. It was a brutal moment, but it revealed the ruthless determination already growing inside the young boy. Temujin had learned a lesson that would shape his entire life. On the Mongolian steppe, kindness alone did not ensure survival. Strength did, and only those willing to fight for power could keep it. The boy who had been abandoned and left to starve on the steppe would carry those lessons with him forever. In time, he would gather followers, unite tribes that had fought for generations, and build an army unlike any the world had ever seen. But for now, Temujin was still just a struggling boy on the vast Mongolian plains, unaware that his destiny would one day reshape the world. As Temujin grew older, the hardships of his childhood hardened him. The Mongolian steppe was a ruthless world where power determined survival, and loyalty was often bought through strength. But Temujin possessed something that many tribal leaders did not. He understood people, where other chiefs ruled through noble bloodlines and inherited status. Temujin built loyalty through trust, reward, and opportunity. Men who had once been outcasts, slaves, or minor warriors found something new in Temujin's growing band of followers. They found a leader who judged them not by their birth, but by their ability. This idea was revolutionary on the steppe. Warriors who proved themselves in battle were promoted. Loyal followers were rewarded with wealth and responsibility. For many men, Temujin offered a future they could never have achieved under traditional tribal hierarchies. Slowly, his following began to grow, but power on the steppe never came without enemies. Rival clans saw Temujin as a threat. One of the most dangerous was the powerful Taichiud tribe, who once captured Temujin and imprisoned him. For a time, it seemed that his story might end before it had truly begun. But Temujin escaped captivity with the help of a sympathetic guard who believed the young warrior was destined for greatness. Returning to the steppe, Temujin began gathering allies. He formed alliances with powerful tribal leaders, including his childhood friend Jamukha. Together they built a strong coalition capable of challenging rival tribes. Yet ambition and power rarely coexist peacefully. The friendship between Temujin and Jamukha eventually collapsed as both men sought leadership over the Mongol tribes. What followed was a series of brutal wars across the steppe. Temujin proved to be the more ruthless and strategic commander. One by one, rival tribes fell before his forces. Some submitted willingly, others were crushed completely. With every victory, Temujin's reputation grew. Warriors flocked to his banner, drawn by the promise of reward, loyalty, and victory. Finally, in the year 1206, leaders from across the Mongolian steppe gathered for a great assembly. At this council, Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan. The title meant universal ruler. For the first time in history, the scattered tribes of the Mongolian steppe were united under a single leader. But Genghis Khan had no intention of stopping there. Beyond the endless plains of Mongolia lay rich kingdoms, powerful empires, and cities filled with unimaginable wealth. And soon, the armies of the steppe would ride beyond the horizon, toward conquest. By the time the tribes of the steppe had united under Genghis Khan, something entirely new had been created. It was not simply an army, it was a machine of war. For centuries, the Mongols had lived as nomadic horsemen, moving constantly across the vast grasslands of Central Asia. Every child grew up riding horses, hunting animals, and learning to fight. By adulthood, most Mongol warriors had already spent their entire lives mastering the skills of survival and combat. But Genghis Khan transformed these natural abilities into something far more dangerous. He organized his army with ruthless efficiency. Instead of tribal loyalties, he divided his warriors into units based on strict military structure. Groups of 10 soldiers formed a squad. 10 squads formed a company. 10 companies formed a regiment. This system ensured that every soldier knew exactly who he answered to and who answered to him. Discipline became absolute. Orders were followed instantly, and betrayal was punished without mercy. Yet structure alone did not make the Mongol army unstoppable. What truly made them terrifying was their mobility. Every Mongol warrior rode with multiple horses, allowing them to change mounts throughout long journeys. While enemy armies marched slowly across land, Mongol forces could travel incredible distances in a matter of days. They appeared where no enemy expected them, striking quickly and disappearing just as fast. Their weapons were equally deadly. The Mongols carried powerful composite bows capable of firing arrows with incredible speed and precision. From horseback, a skilled Mongol archer could strike enemies from distances that other armies could barely reach. Even more impressive, they could fire while riding at full speed. This allowed Mongol cavalry to attack, retreat, and attack again without ever giving their enemies a chance to respond. But perhaps the most terrifying weapon of all was their strategy. Mongol generals were masters of deception. They would pretend to retreat, drawing enemy armies into pursuit. Believing victory was near, the enemy would chase the Mongols across the battlefield, and then, suddenly, the trap would close. Hidden Mongol forces would appear from the sides, surrounding their opponents completely. Confused and trapped, Entire armies were destroyed within hours. Against such tactics, even powerful empires struggled to survive. Under the command of Genghis Khan, the Mongol army had become the most disciplined, mobile, and strategically brilliant fighting force in the world. And soon, this unstoppable war machine would ride beyond the Mongolian steppe, into lands that had never before faced the fury of the Mongols. Once the tribes of the steppe had been united, Genghis Khan turned his attention beyond the endless plains of Mongolia. Beyond the steppe lay kingdoms and empires far wealthier and more powerful than any Mongol tribe. To many rulers of the civilized world, the nomads of the steppe were little more than scattered horsemen. But they would soon discover how wrong they were. The first great campaigns began against the powerful kingdoms of northern China. Mongol armies swept across the land with terrifying speed, capturing fortified cities and breaking armies that had once seemed invincible. Yet it was the destruction of the Khwarezmian Empire that truly revealed the unstoppable force of the Mongol war machine. What began as a diplomatic dispute quickly escalated into one of the most devastating campaigns in medieval history. After Mongol merchants were killed by officials of the Khwarezmian ruler, Genghis Khan launched a massive invasion across Central Asia. City after city fell before the Mongol advance. Some surrendered and were spared, others resisted and were destroyed completely. Within just a few years, the once powerful Khwarezmian Empire had been erased from the map. The Mongol armies had demonstrated a terrifying truth. No empire, no matter how wealthy or powerful, was beyond their reach. By the time of his death in the year 1227, the empire created by Genghis Khan stretched across vast regions of Asia. But his legacy did not end with him. His sons and grandsons would carry the Mongol banners even farther, expanding the empire across the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and China. At its height, the Mongol Empire became the largest contiguous land empire in human history. From the Pacific Ocean to the borders of Europe, Mongol rule reshaped the political landscape of Eurasia. Trade routes across the Silk Road flourished under Mongol protection. Merchants, travelers, and ideas moved across continents more freely than ever before. For all the destruction of their conquests, the Mongols also created an era of connection between civilizations that had rarely interacted before. Even centuries later, the name Genghis Khan continues to inspire fascination, fear, and debate. To some, he was a ruthless destroyer whose armies left devastation in their wake. To others, he was a visionary leader who united divided tribes and forged one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen. But regardless of how history judges him, one fact remains undeniable. From a boy abandoned and nearly starved on the Mongolian steppe, he rose to become the most feared conqueror in history, and the thunder of Mongol horses still echoes across the pages of history.